The corpse, clad in rusted centurion armor, rises from the stone coffin. Chrysos, rebuked, drops to one knee. "Honored dead, I am Chrysos Valosa, your descendant. I've come to restore the glory of our house." With supernatural syllables, it utters a curse in an unknown tongue. Chrysos feels a terrible stabbing sensation in his face. His mind and spirit reel against the mystical damnation. The cloud of noxious vapors engulf him, and he falls limply to the floor. After storming the holdfast of Drake Hill and fighting off brigands in the Old Wind Hills, the party returns to Vitus. They are seeking Chrysos Valosa, a great warrior and older cousin of Inic Valosa. Chrysos had recently made an expedition under the city to find an eldritch book known as the Tome of Blacktongue. Shortly after his return, he disappeared. Vitus is an ancient city, a metropolis, where the turn of each corner can bring something new. Vendors sell bread, herbs, and olive oil along the thronged streets. Laborers stumble out of dim taverns, reeking of cheap wine. Guards with crested helmets, carrying shields and spears, patrol for lawbreakers. Elderly men in robes debate philosophy within a courtyard of fountains and cypresses. A noblewoman rides through a main road atop her chariot, gilded in copper and gold. In the distance, a massive temple of pillars and statues rises in sacred serenity above the commotion. It is said that anything can be found in Vitus.
Anything can be found if you are enough skilled, enough wealthy, or enough knowing the right people.
Ashiana Sighing-Brook frowns as she watches a portly street merchant kick a yelping mutt away from his carrel. "Well, let's hope we have enough then." Inic Valosa eyes the elf. "How is your shoulder?"
"Not bad."
She rolls her arm, as if working out a cramp. Emerging from the crowds walking the street comes Leo Apollonius. He wears a tunic and mantle of light colors, and a holy talisman of the Divine Father hangings from his neck. "What kept you so long?"
"Prayer cannot be rushed, Inic. Too long had I neglected making an offering to the Lord above."
Ashiana points toward the great hill to the southeast.
"I think the temple is that way. You came from the wrong direction."
"I made my devotions at the House of Eternal Stone. That way. I would rather not enter the high temples. The Temple of Ages is where the incident occurred." Inic remembers well the tale of Leo nearly incinerating the high priest. After that, Leo left his order, following what he perceived to be the guidance of his god. "I've spoken with my family and servants. They're expecting us 3. Come, I welcome you to enjoy our hospitality." Inic beckons his 2 allies, and the party makes their way up the sloping streetway to High Magnus, the upper-class ward. House Valosa is one of the great houses of Vitus, though many speak of its impending demise. It traces its lineage back to the legendary warlord Magro Valosa, the one who came to be known as Blacktongue. Parts of the estate are vacant of family members and retainers, and signs of neglect and disrepair are visible here and there. The 3 allies partake of a meal, listening to the ramblings of Inic's grandfather, Rofax. The man is old and sickly from a lifetime of drunkenness. He and Inic further explain their plight. The Valosa family has accrued a tremendous amount of debt, and their dwindled incomes can scarcely cover basic needs and city taxes. Chrysos' father is deceased. Inic's father has all but disowned the family. and Chrysos himself is missing. What's more, Inick's heredity is currently a matter of legal debate. There are those who claim he is actually a bastard born out of a secret love affair. There are no more heirs, explains Inick. I doubt my father will have a change of heart. And when the courts resume, they may decree that I am no trueborn. Chrysos is our best hope.
When was he last seen?
Asks Leo. After returning from his expedition, he was in a foul mood. He complained of a pain in his face and a stiff jaw. He spoke little, but I was able to get him to say something. Damned thief robbed me of the book, is what he said. A couple days later, a strange man showed up at the front door. He was tall, covered in markings, and spoke with an accent that I could not place.
What do you mean? He had tattoos over his body, over his face?
Yes, that's right.
And tall, with a dark hair?
Ashiana searches for the right word. His hair was done in a braided fashion I've never seen before.
An archai.
Leo nods in agreement.
Yes, it sounds so. One of the island folk of Nival. I wonder what his purpose is here.
I don't know. He never entered our house. Chrysos went with him one evening, but returned by himself. The next day, I spoke with the women of the house. Chrysos' wife, Charis, said he was heading to the Temple of Rhodes. He refused to let her come. Again, he spoke very little. His mood was black. And that was the last anyone had seen of him.
You did not visit the Temple of Rhodes?
Twice I made for the temple, and each time I came under threat. 2 men with a menacing air questioned me and insisted I tell them what I know about Chrysos. I wasn't about to reveal anything of my cousin to them. They had me at such a disadvantage, alone there on the street.
I wish to look around this house of yours.
Grandfather Rofax begins to protest about an elf woman prowling about the estate.
She can't just walk in and out of the men's quarters. And what if she steals something?
Easy now, grandfather. We have to find Chrysos, and this elf's senses are sharper than mine. She's a skilled huntress. I give you my word. I'll keep a close eye on her.
You had better. You had better. And you, elf, this is our home, our sanctuary. Remember to respect it.
Ashiana replies in the tongue of the forest.
If I wanted to rob you, I'd sneak in at night.
What's that now?
Rofax asks her. Changing back to Palagotian, she replies,
In Forelange, it is said, your hospitality, your rules, my respect.
Yes, that will be good then.
The party spends some time searching the estate. With Ashiana at the lead, they look around, both high and low, inside and out. Ashiana notices 2 interesting clues. First, there are animal tracks all over the place. They begin in the outer yard, then go over the wall to the inner yard, up to the house, along its perimeter, and they are in highest concentration on the ground under the window to Chrysos' personal quarters. She says the prints are those of a dog, a rather big rat, and some type of lizard she is not familiar with. The tracks come and go, and some are many days old. There are but 2 guardsmen in the employ of House Velosa, and neither claims to have seen such animals around the estate. The second clue she notices is a long, black, wiry strand of hair in Chrysos' personal quarters.
It is the hair of an archai.
Inick, you said the archai never entered the house.
He didn't. At least, not through either of the doorways.
Let us follow these animal marks in the ground. They go at south we can see where to.
The party makes their way down a major street slope. To their left, one of the city's aqueducts spills down a steep escarpment, making a waterfall that empties into the pool below. The three comrades enter Hillside, one of the older and somewhat seedier parts of Vitus. Ashiana is an expert tracker, and she keeps the trail all the way through the alleys to a neighborhood of crowded limestone buildings. But eventually the tracks end just before the alleyway exits onto a street full of crowds and rubbish.
These animals stopped here.
Here? Where'd they go from here? Enoch looks around, but there is no sign of a burrow or den. The tenement buildings on either side rise up some 4 stories. Ashiana looks stumped, but not defeated.
Perhaps someone pick up with the animals here. But how they could be trained so good? How a dog or lizard can follow the same way and back every time?
There may be more to this Archai than we know yet. I say we ask of him. Surely someone has seen a tall, tattooed fellow. There cannot be all too many Archai dwelling around these parts.
Those with whom Leo speaks have no specifics to offer. A few people confirm that they have seen an Archai from time to time, but that is all. Enoch says, I shall wait, hiding in Chrysos' own chamber. Perhaps this animal will show up again. Leo strokes his beard.
Well, Ashiana, when would you say is the last time these stealthy creatures visited House Velosa?
3, maybe 4 or 5 days past.
He or it or whomever may have already quit coming.
Just give me some time. I will remain around this area. I will try to spot this Archai man.
And so the elf parts ways for a time. She spends her evenings slinking through the crowded streets and dim alleys and checks the gathering dens and wine taverns. She does what she can to remain inconspicuous as she searches for her quarry. 2 days pass, and the ranger shows up at the estate of House Velosa, calling upon Enoch. The sun has been down for 3 hours at the time.
I believe I have found a man.
Let's see him. Ashiana leads Enoch and Leo back to Hillside and takes them into a dim tavern called Atoria's Rest. The interior is filled with the hum of conversation, along with the scents of wine, smoke, and burning lamps. Seated at a table in the back room, deep in his cups, is an Archai. He has broad shoulders, long dreadlocked hair, a wide nose, and flat ears. His skin is darker than the tanned olive complexion of many Palagotians, and there is a slight oceanic hue about him. Most distinct, however, are the tribalistic designs inked into his face. Islander, calls Enoch. I am Enoch Velosa, cousin of Chrysos. Do you know him? The Archai studies Enoch, but does not reply. Do you speak Palagotian?
Yes, I speak the tongue of the Highlands.
Then answer me, foreigner. My cousin's life may be at stake.
Something very ominous is taking place. I have no sure of trust for anyone.
The Archai stands, assessing the 3 in front of him. He is 6.5 feet tall, and wears leathers and furs made from no Palagotian animal. A heavy staff leans against his table, and at his side hangs a sharpened disc of whalebone and obsidian.
I know Chrysos, but I fear for him. We had disagreements, but I still considered of him my comrade.
Where is he now?
The last time I saw of him, he was going back down into undercity. I tried following him, but it almost cost me my life. My trial in this place has met only ill fortune. I am planning on returning home, defeated.
The Archai clenches his teeth and hands, then sighs.
I have heard of this undercity. Would you take us there? I will not go back, but I can tell you the way.
Leo scratches his beard and gives a concerned head shake. The undercity is said to be a vile place, Innick.
I know.
Tell us true, Southman. Is your information reliable? Are you leading us into some trap?
I give you no traps.
Leo is uncertain of whether or not to trust the Archai. Wherever you go, Innick, I shall be at your side.
First, I will have your name.
I am Legendcape Duval, shaman and moon warrior of the Whitewater tribe.
The Archai goes on to explain the location of the secret passageway found in the necropolis, which leads down into the undercity.
The entrance is long corridor. There will be a man who appears as a blind pauper. He will ask of you how much you are willing to pay. You must reply, whatever it takes.
My thanks, Legendcape. My cousin also sought aid at the Temple of Rhodes. What do you know of this?
Black Tongue cursed Chrysos. He went the temple for spiritual aid, but I do not think they had able of help to him.
So, Chrysos found Black Tongue's grave after all, and he believed there was a curse on this tomb.
Legendcape shifts uncomfortably, picks up his cup and takes a deep drink.
Not the tomb. Black Tongue himself rose from his sarcophagus and placed a curse upon Chrysos.
A distant fear slithers through the Archai's gaze, and all he can do is down the remainder of his wine. Little more is said, and the four exit Atoria's Rest. Innick and his allies head in the direction of the necropolis, and Legendcape of the Whitewaters toward his own destiny. Within the undercroft of an old mausoleum, the party finds a staircase that descends into a lower chamber. By the light of Innick's lantern, they go down. Sounds of song come from ahead, and another light appears. Seated upon mold-grown barrels are three men. They have a single lamp glowing between them, and they are in the middle of some bawdy verse.
A noble girl or a drunken wench or a whore on the dirty street, fair as a rose or ugly as sin, well, it makes no matter to me. For the man down there, he knows what he wants, and he's blind as blind can be. So he romps and he rubs and he stomps and he shoves till he sets his demons free.
Upon seeing the two humans and the elf approach, the singers stop. Each bears a repulsive look. The first is warty and fat, the second is badly scarred, and the third has the clouded eyes of a blind man, and when he speaks, his teeth show jagged and sharp as flint daggers.
How much are you willing to pay to get in there?
He motions toward an archway at the other side of the room. Innick holds his stead and replies,
Whatever it takes.
The blind man nods.
Enjoy yourselves.
Through the arched opening, the party walks. They cross a long entry passage, ever wary as they do. This leads to a large open forum, a marketplace of sorts, lit by a lamp or a sconced torch here, or a rusty brazier or bronze lantern there. The place is dim and dirty, and it is occupied by a wide variety of characters. A man with a hook hand is hawking weapons from a stall, crossbows and spiked chains, rapiers from Ophora, longbows from Two Rivers, falchions and flails from Omtep, katanas from Sune, and many more. A pair of scantily dressed harlots pass by, coughing and laughing and smoking something foul-smelling. Men brawl in a lower section, while onlookers holler and make bets. A spindly rat-catcher strides by, his cages full of squeaking vermin newly caught. A deformed brute who looks as though one of his parents was a bear laughs as Enoch walks by.
What are you, a city guard? Pay no mind, Enoch. Best we keep to ourselves down here.
This is the other face of Vitus,
Ashiana says quietly as she surveys the underbelly of the city. Where might Chrysos have gone? Enoch wonders to his allies.
I seem to recall someone mentioning a shrine below the city. Perhaps Chrysos sought it out when he found no aid elsewhere.
Unfortunately, the cleric knows nothing more. We'll keep looking around for now. The party goes the route of a left-hand section, and it ends at a slave market. A man with a shaved head and a wicked voice is showing his wares to a potential client. Standing in shackles are husky eunuchs for laborers and guards, women for bed slaves, and even a few children, all clearly lowborn, and some with foreign looks to them.
Oh!
Leo gasps at the sight. He grips his talisman and mumbles a prayer to stave off a fury of divine rage. Pale wisps of flame lick outward from his hands. No, Leo. Enoch steps to block the view of the priest from passers-by.
If you get us killed down here, you'll do the slaves no good,
Ashiana says in her native tongue. Leo replies in Forelange.
It is one thing to see slaves working up there in the street or in a bathhouse, but this is too much to bear looking at.
Now you know a bit of what I feel when I step foot within your human hives.
Get me out of here.
Enoch looks puzzled. What? Calm yourself. Tell me, what's the matter? Leo is walking away already, and he shouts back in Palagotian,
I told you this was the wrong place to go. Now let's just find your cousin and leave this cesspit.
All that is being sold down here. Information must be something we can come by. Enoch asks a few individuals where best to hire an advisor or informant. After speaking with a madman claiming to be a prophet and a strange fellow who was selling spiders, the party meets a woman named Ayla. She owns a small dwelling guarded by 2 men wearing mail and spiked skullcaps. In order to enter and speak with her, one must be unarmed and pay a starting price of 5 gold pieces. Ashiana refuses to hand over her longbow and sword, so she waits outside, while Enoch and Leo enter. Ayla is a woman well into her 3rd decade. She wears a loose black dress, a silken sash, and a golden necklace.
A man who fits your description did indeed come through here recently. Something was following him. A peculiar-looking lizard, like one of the wingless drakes that bask in the warm sun of the southern isles. This man was not looking for a temple or any sort of priest. He was seeking a woman by the name of Sindala, a thief. I do not believe he found her. He found something else, though, in the shadowy passages near the maze. She was pale and wretched, like a corpse, and spider-like fangs grew from her mouth. The man fled, and she instead turned to attack the lizard who had been tailing him. She caught the lizard in a web, but it managed to rip itself free and escape just before she closed in on it. I know this is a strange tale, but I tell you it just as it was presented to me.
The lizard, again, says Leo. Ledelic said he was a shaman.
and Moon Warrior. I expect they were one and the same. Daedalic is a skin changer.
I still need to know where Chrysos went.
Ayla says, "That I cannot tell you, but the man was seen heading in the direction of High Magnus."
Back home? No.
Perhaps back to the Temple of Rhodes.
With the strength of Leo and Ashiana at his side, Leo resolves to seek out the Temple of Rhodes once again. The party puts the stinking undercity behind them and breathe gladly when the fresh night air greets them. They trek back up to the noble ward and arrive at the temple in the dead of night. It is a massive structure of pillars, limestone, and marble, replete with friezes and statuary, and the main hall of worship is framed by a colonnade. This is about when the men accosted me twice before, here at the approach to the temple.
Enoch and his two comrades look around. If there are thugs or footpads about, they give no signs of their presence. Still, they see no one and continue on. The Temple of Rhodes has no doors to seal it shut, so the three enter through an open archway into the main hall. A few lamps and candles provide pools of soft light, and the incense of centuries scents the space. A handful of temple-goers stand there offering gloaming devotions to the effigies of the entire pantheon: the Divine Father, the Sisters, the Elemental Four, and the Shadow Lords. Leo finds a single acolyte there and pulls the boy from his prayers.
"Why do you disturb my devotions?"
complains the acolyte. Enoch sends the boy off to fetch a priest. Long minutes pass before a man appears. He is gray, yet stocky and tough-looking. Beneath his flowing priestly mantle, he wears mail. At his hip hangs a heavy mace.
"Yes?"
is all he says.
"I am looking for my cousin, Chrysos Valosa.
I know he has been here recently."
Valosa.
The elderly priest thinks on the name.
He is 4 years my senior, a warrior and swordsman.
He believed himself under a curse.
"Yes,"
the priest nods.
"Messon spoke with him and gave him sanctuary in one of our cells."
"Is he here now?"
"Quiet your voice, good man. I can take you to this cousin of yours."
The grayed priest gives the party a suspicious eye.
"You too, remain here,"
he says to Leo and Ashiana. "I am a cleric anointed, a servant of the light." Leo reverently displays his holy symbol. "Surely you would not forbid me and my bodyguard."
"I do forbid you. Wait here or outside. You, come this way. What is your name?"
"Enoch Valosa."
"Enoch. I am Noro. Follow me."
Enoch walks behind the priest, out of the hall of worship, down one of the long colonnades. Noro is a man of stolid words. He says,
"Messon is another of our anointed priests, and our scribe. He told me he feared whatever was afflicting your cousin. He gave Chrysos a basic cloister cell, hoping the hollowed wards over the temple would prevent your cousin's malady from worsening, while he sent off missives asking for further guidance."
Enoch asks a number of questions that Noro seems unfit to answer, but when they arrive at the acolyte cell, the door hangs ajar, and no one is within. The priest checks the other cells, which are either empty as well, or occupied by the 6 other acolytes who reside at the temple.
"He is not here.
Is there elsewhere that we can look?"
"Without the temple keys, which I have, the only place he could have entered would have been the hall of worship, and he was not there."
Enoch rubs his forehead and sighs.
"Well, many thanks for your trouble. I'll return on the morrow to speak with this Messon." "Fine and well. Goodbye."
Enoch goes back to where his 2 allies were left waiting, but they are nowhere to be found. He curses under his breath and contemplates whether or not to return home. Just as he starts to leave, he hears Ashiana call for him.
Enoch!
The elf and the cleric approach from the shadows of the colonnade on the other side of the main hall.
Enoch, come this way. We found something.
What is it?
Someone has opened the door to the crypt.
They take Enoch to the west side of the temple. Enoch lights his lantern and shines the light onto the entrance to the crypt. Saintly friezes frame a bronze door graven with austere iconography. By the looks of it, someone of great strength forced open the locked door. We're going in. Ashiana pauses.
What? Down there? We wait for morning.
What if Chrysos is there? What if he needs us now?
I don't like that at all.
The elf shivers. That priest said the temple grounds are hallowed against evil spirits. That would include the crypt, wouldn't it? Enoch looks at Leo.
Yes, of course it would. Souls must find rest and safe passage through the underworld. Tombs are the most ideal places for holy wards.
As he says, Ashiana, come. They descend the stone steps into the crypt. Enoch's lantern throws back the darkness, revealing 4 adjoining chambers of stone sarcophagi and wall catacombs. The crypt is clean, organized, and adorned with holy reliefs and emblems. Other than a couple mice and a single spider spinning a web, all is quiet and all is still. In the final chamber, the party notices one of the standing sarcophagi is open. Enoch shines his torch to see beyond the unsealed lid a passageway leading farther down. Ashiana curses in the tongue of the forest and refuses to take the lead or the rear. The tunnel descends into a lower crypt. This one is dank and pervaded by a heavy air. The walls and stone coffins are crumbling and slicked with niter, and the appearance of the area suggests that it was constructed in some ancient heathen age.
Footprints,
says Ashiana, pointing to the grime-caked flagstone. The tracks wind the black hovel of a tomb and lead up to a sarcophagus whose engravings have long since faded into obscurity.
I'm going to open it.
Before his comrades can protest, Enoch hands his lantern to Leo and steps forward. He throws open the lid of the sarcophagus and screams. Lying within, clutching his sword, is the body of a man with no face. His clothing, his body shape, even his hair decree him Chrysos, but his eyes, nose, mouth, and ears have all disappeared, leaving only a blank swath of gray-green skin.
He's dead!
Shouts Enoch, turning away from the stinking, faceless corpse. He releases a mournful wail, but in that same instant Ashiana shouts, Enoch, move! The body of Chrysos lurches from the coffin, brandishing a sword on high. Upon beholding the faceless horror, the 3 explorers are stricken with supernatural dread. Enoch is overwhelmed with paralyzing terror at the sight of his reanimated and malformed cousin. Ashiana shrieks and draws her longbow. Before loosing the arrow, she invokes the hunter's spirit of a tree lynx. Whatever Chrysos has become, his body seems to repel attacks, as though he were made of gravestone and not flesh and blood. Ashiana darts behind a pillar to take cover. Leo holds the glowing lantern in one hand and raises his sacred talisman in the other. He shouts a rebuke against the deathly warrior.
In the name of the Lord of Light, fall back, servant of darkness!
Seeing that the warding prayer had no effect, Leo shuffles backward, bewildered. The undead Chrysos steps to Enoch, who is in the grips of terror, and slashes directly at his face. The blade clatters off Enoch's helm, nearly slicing into his face. The warrior regains hold of himself. He shouts for his cousin to stop, but his words are in vain. The ranger pokes out from behind the pillar and fires. Leo shouts a divine invocation once more, conjuring a sphere of flames. Illumination brightens the crumbling crypt, sending vermin scuttling for the shadows. The flaming orb rolls across the ground, straight for the faceless ghoul. Chrysos is undeterred and strikes at Enoch once again. The blade not only bites, but it saps at Enoch's life force. The faceless one lurches away from the fiery orb, singeing at his side. He heads for the glowing priest. As he moves away, Enoch seizes the chance. As the undead warrior reaches Leo, Enoch closes in behind, now holding his warhammer with a two-handed grip. The hammer's head bounces off the horror, causing little more than a slight scuff in its tunic. Ashiana runs out from behind the pillar, fires a shot at her quarry, and takes a better position behind a different pillar. Leo stares into the featureless plain of the dead man's head. His flaming sphere crackles hot. With an instant of concentration, it comes, rolling in an arc path to slam into Chrysos. Leo then brings out his heavy shield and straps it to his forearm. He steps to the side in order to avoid the heat radiating off the sphere. Chrysos angles his blade, and he swings towards the priest. The blade gashes Leo's side wide open, and he feels the withering of his life vigor. He collapses to the cold, hard floor. His fiery sphere snuffs out with a puff of smoke. "No!" shouts Enoch when he sees his ally fall. He pours his entire effort into holding his ground and fighting back the cursed foe. Ashiana darts over to the base of the tunnel entrance that leads up into the holy crypt above. "Flee, Enoch!" She takes aim at the faceless one. Enoch shouts back, "We can take him!"
Above is protected!
She thinks about what Leo had said of the hallowed wards. Enoch evades the dead man's lunging blade. He returns the attack. His warhammer pounds against the fiend's body. It remains silent, unflinching, driven on by some fell animus. Ashiana remains ready to sprint up the tunnel. She releases another shaft. The arrow stabs into the undead's chest, but it continues on. Chrysos' sword falls again, tireless. Its swooshing and clanging steel seem to serve as his own voice. Blade clashes against hammerhead. Enoch takes a swing as he can. Enoch's warhammer smashes against the skull of his reanimated cousin. Black blood sprays and goes running down the corpse's head, yet it does not yield. Ashiana shouts again for Enoch to come. She tells herself, "Just one more shot." The arrow buries itself into the thing's head. It staggers backward and falls over a half-ruined sarcophagus. Enoch prepares for another assault, but the cursed Chrysos does not rise again. "It's dead! We slew it!" The warrior and the elf rush to the fallen Leo. Ashiana puts her ear to his chest.
His heart still beats, though weakly.
Innick rips a strip of cloth from the priest's mantle, and Ashiana helps him bind the gash in the man's side. The wound is a wide cut of black and red flesh, with hints of rib showing through. The two allies do all they can. Fortunately, they are able to stem the bleeding. Ashiana runs off to summon the priest, Noro. While he waits, Innick looks at the grotesque corpse that used to be his cousin, Chrysos Valosa. He remembers playing with him as a child. First it was races and games, and when they got older, it was fights with padded wooden swords. Numberless days they ate and drank together, and they went to battle together on the side of the king when House Watanya tried to usurp the throne, and they buried Chrysos' father together. Now, Innick would bid his final farewell. A short time later, Ashiana returns with Noro, and Innick pulls free from his memories. The gray warden of the temple utters a curse when he sees the misbegotten catacomb hidden below the temple crypt. He curses again when he sees the blood on the floor and the horrid dead man without a face. He puts a proper bandage over Leo's wound, scented with herbs and oils. They move him carefully up into the holy tomb above. An hour later, Leo gasps and his eyes flutter open.
I am alive!
You are. We almost lost you, my friend.
It was terrible. I was plunging into a great cold darkness beyond life and hope. But then came the light from above, calling me back.
Leo closes his eyes, chants, and places a hand over his bandaged side. The others watch, Innick, Ashiana, Noro, with wide eyes at the miraculous healing powers of the cleric. Leo goes prostrate, hands clasped together, thanking the Divine Father for the protection of his guiding light.